Yeah, Apple's Mac Studio has removable storage that is not user upgradable, and I kind of feel like history is repeating itself. And today I kind of want to talk about why. Hey everybody, welcome back to another tech video, and this one is going to be a bit shorter just because it was a topic that I honestly wasn't even going to cover, but the more I watched videos about it on YouTube, the more I realized that my opinion, based on my previous experience with other Apple devices, is different from a majority of the tech YouTubers out there. So today I figured, well, I'll give it a shot and throw my hat in the ring on this. The topic I'm referring to specifically is, yes, the fact that Apple's Mac Studio has removable storage that is not user upgradable. I have my own opinions on this, and I also kind of feel like history is repeating itself, but we'll talk about why in a minute, because I want to make three things abundantly clear before we get started. First things first, no, I don't have my Mac Studio yet. I've ordered it. It's supposed to be showing up on the 19th, which means that, well, by that time the review cycle will be over and nobody's going to watch my videos, so that is awesome. Secondly, I am not going to be taking this Mac apart. It's going to be compared to my Mac Minis, two of them, the base model and the upgraded one that's been running my channel. And once it's done, I'm going to be doing videos covering my workflow and generally how it fits into that workspace, because it is going into the workspace that my Mac Mini has lived in for about a year, and it will sit there for the duration of its life until I either upgrade or, well, upgrade. There's really no other option. And third, and most importantly, I'm going to be referencing a few content creators in this video, and I do not have beef with them. I do not intend to start any beef with them. In fact, quite a few of them, I've watched their content for a while before I started making my own, and I kind of drew inspiration from some of their content to kind of make some of my own. So in general, I have respect for these YouTube channels, most of them. I'm kidding. I have respect for all of these YouTube channels, and honestly, I just want to make my own thoughts because opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one, and you don't have to be one to share yours. There you go. All right, so first things first. Yes, the Mac Studio has non-upgradable, technically non-upgradable storage. You can remove it as the user if you rip off the little rubber ring at the bottom, undo some screws, take out the dangerous power supply. I will fully agree. I think everybody who has done anything with electrical equipment fully agrees that power supply is dangerous, but very clearly not something that the user is really meant to play with. So sort of 6 and 1/2 dozen of the other. They designed it for the user not to touch, but if a user is brave enough to touch it, that is very dangerous. I have been shocked by a car battery. I don't enjoy the experience. This just looks horrifying. And then there's like a little cage thing, and then there's 2 storage slots, one of which is filled on certain models, both of which are filled in other models, because the way that Apple makes some of their chips faster is by running them in like a weird RAID 0 configuration. It's weird, but either way, there's 1 to 2, I'm going to call them NAND modules, because they're not technically SSDs. They kind of are, but I'll talk about why I don't call them NAND in a minute. Or rather, why I don't call them SSD. Well, let's talk about it now. I'm not calling them SSDs because an SSD has NAND flash storage and a controller. These do not have a controller on them. These are just NAND modules, basically. And why that's important is because when you look at the way that Apple configures their devices, specifically anything that has used the T2, or in this case, anything that's used the Secure Enclave on the new M1 architecture, everything controller-wise is taken care of directly on package. Now, that is with the exception of the Mac Pro, as far as I understand. The security was handled by the T2 chip, but as far as I know, the storage on the Mac Pro is a standard SSD with a controller in it, but I'll talk about that more in a minute. But by putting the SSD controller and all the security components on the SoC, you are essentially binding that cluster of NAND storage to the device. And as Luke Miani found out in his video, even if you swap them from one device to another, add another one, or just try to change any odd configuration around, it's not going to identify anything other than the SSD that it's shipped with, which is not the first time we've seen this, and this is why I feel like history is repeating itself a little. Back in 2019, when the Mac Pro launched, it was ridiculed for several things, including its obscene price for its pedestrian specs, but another thing that it was ridiculed for was the fact that it had upgradable storage that couldn't be upgraded. And a couple months later, Apple updated their Configurator 2 tool to allow for users to recompile or reconfigure their T2 chip to talk with a new set of SSDs that they would happily sell you for fairly high prices on the Apple Store. Now, I agree with several people when we talked about this that they should have been more on the ball with the fact that the upgradable storage should have been available day one, And the upgrade to Configurator 2 should have been available also on day one, but it wasn't, and they did the same thing with the launch of the M1 architecture. Now, this second dropping of the ball by Apple is something I am significantly more familiar with because I was working at Geek Squad during the launch of the M1 chips coming out in the MacBook Pro, the MacBook Air, and the Mac Mini. And that Configurator 2 tool barely lets you do anything with those devices. You could identify it, and I think you could erase it as far as I remember, but you couldn't restore them. And this was a big issue for us. One of the things that I did at Geek Squad was I would restore devices when they came in so they could be Geek Squad certified with an open box label and then sent out on the floor to be resold. Unfortunately, for those months that we didn't have a configurator tool option to restore them ourselves, we had to send them out to get them restored, and sometimes they still wouldn't come back done correctly. And this was just because the tool wasn't ready for it. Another reason we would need it is because a customer would format their Mac in the same way that you'd format an Intel Mac and brick their device. And so Configurator Tool was the only way to recover it, but couldn't do that until the update came around. Now, I'm using these two examples of the Mac Pro and my personal experience with the launch of the M1 to tell you that Apple doesn't do the most logical thing at launch with some of their devices, which is to push as much software out on day one as possible to fully support this device. I mean, hell, they haven't even updated Final Cut yet for the new M1 Ultra, so some benchmarks and some render results, they don't look too good compared to the M1 Max because it's not optimized for the Ultra, which pisses me off just because I want an update to Final Cut. I always like updates to Final Cut. Like, guys, when are you going to update to putting Final Cut on the iPad? I'm still waiting. Anyway, moving away from that, when I watched Luke Miani's video where he actually hooked the Mac Studio up to Configurator and tried to get it to restore with that new SSD in there, that error seems to be something that I was familiar with. Not that error specifically, but erroring out when trying to recover the device. Yeah, I saw that a lot. So Luke, kudos to you. I am actually very impressed that you thought to use Configurator 2, and as much as I appreciate it, I think if you would have looked at the App Store, you would have seen that at the time that you made that video, it had been a hot minute since Configurator had been properly updated. So, nice try. Part 3, can't wait to see it. All right. It's a joke. I'm just making a joke. Come on, it was a nice one. It's just, don't come up and slap me, please. Yes, got a Chris Rock, Will Smith joke in. But anyway, yeah, it's been a hot minute since Configurator's been updated, and it was not updated at the launch of the Mac Studio, which was Apple dropping the ball again. I don't know why they don't update these things at launch. So overall, I just kind of feel like these YouTubers are kind of jumping the gun just a little bit when it comes to complaining about these Mac Studios not having upgradable storage, because with the pace that Apple seems to move when it comes to pushing software out that helps reconfigure devices or change settings or reattach Flash to a security module, I think that potentially in a couple months there may be some options available. I don't know. This is full speculation, and I'd be more than willing to eat my words in a few months if it never happens. But I could easily see a Mac Studio upgrade program potentially where you could send your Mac Studio in and upgrade to a terabyte of storage if you bought 512, which I don't think I will do, but it might be a cool option. Or maybe, just maybe, they would push an upgrade program out where you can get like the ring to replace because you got to ruin it to take it off, and a replaceable SSD as your own self-upgrade kit. But with that power supply, I don't think they would let their general users do that. But while I do think these YouTubers are jumping the gun, even with some of their more in-depth coverage of this sort of SSD debacle, I do also understand that they have to review these devices as they are currently. And currently, I do think it's kind of stupid that the modules are not upgradable, even though they are removable. Now, I'm not going to make some brooding, moody thumbnail like Louis Rossmann did, but my guy, if you wanted to like be tech Batman and look like you were super depressed with the red text and all, you nailed it. Please don't slap me. Oh, wow. When the SSD controller is integrated onto the SSD on your average PC, that just means that you can move it to wherever, and all the controller configurations are right there on the piece you're moving around. But one of the things you have to consider is that with Apple moving the SSD controller onto the SoC, that is an entirely different step you have to go through, which is why Configurator has to be updated. And yeah, the disadvantage is that your device may not be immediately upgradable until Apple pushes an update through that allows for you to do so, or until they offer a program that allows their Apple Store to do so. However, while these YouTubers are focusing on the disadvantage of having the controller separate, which is obviously reconfiguring it and currently not having the tools to do so, one of the things that they are completely glossing over is security. By putting the security onto a dedicated chip, that means that even when you remove an SSD and go to plunk it into something else, you can't get data off of it because the fingerprint, if you will, of this SSD is completely divorced from the device itself and kept on a dedicated piece of silicon inside of Apple's own chipset, which means that for security, it's almost impossible to beat. The other advantage that a buddy of mine mentioned when we were talking about this was the heat. If you've watched any tech videos from somebody like Linus Tech Tips, you'll probably have seen some SSD videos where they put massive heat sinks or even liquid cooling on NVMe SSDs, and that's because the controller for these devices gets so hot, like scary hot. I actually had to put a heatsink on the main NVMe drive in my gaming PC because when I moved over from water to air cooling, the draft of hot air coming from the air cooler in my PC was actually making the SSD so hot, along with the heat the SSD was already generating, that I was seeing speed decreases. That's how hot these things get. And a lot of that heat is from the controller, because when you're running something this fast, that controller, and to some degree the DRAM that stores memory to quickly dump it out to the storage itself, can get very, very hot because it's just going so fast. And with the NAND storage separate from the controller, it takes a lot more for the NAND storage to get hot, so you can potentially see a longer life out of these NAND storage chips because the SoC is what's handling all the heat from everything, including the SSD controller. And this isn't the first time we've seen this from Apple, it's just this time the NAND is removable as opposed to soldered down, so you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, because they'll complain if it's soldered, or they'll complain if it's removable with the potential to be upgraded later if Apple pushes the software through, but currently it isn't. And actually, this style of separating the controller out from the NAND is also something that Sony used with that crazy fast SSD on their PlayStation 5. So if you wanted an example of something that isn't an Apple product that uses this method, there you go. So at the end of the day, in reference to the videos of everybody complaining about the removable but non-user upgradable storage modules, I personally think that they're jumping the gun, but I also understand that A, if it bleeds, it leads, and so if you make thumbnails like this, or like this, you're going to get clicks from, first off, the people like me who are just interested to see what's in the Mac, and second, everyone else who wants to hate on Apple for their anti-consumerism or just generally hate Apple because they can. And, well, views make you money, and views allow you to make this platform your job. And that is something I really want to do, but I also kind of enjoy having an opposed opinion because, well, I'm not an Apple sheep. I just have a lot of experience with Apple products and have seen both the highs and lows, and considering the way the Mac Pro went with its non-upgradable, upgradable storage in the past, which was then made upgradable through a firmware update, I'm going to hold my opinion on it until we have a solid 2 months in to see if Apple actually introduces some sort of upgrade program. As for the other YouTubers, you've made your videos, you've made your money, you've gotten your Mac Studios. I'm still jealous about that. So overall, I don't agree with the approach to the videos, but I do agree with the current state of the Mac Studio and how they approached it from a as is out of the box right now standpoint. And again, I have nothing but respect for these YouTubers, and genuinely, I hope them the best. So good luck, guys. I understand where you're coming from. As for you all, thank you for watching all the way to the end of this video. It might have gone a little longer than I intended, but either way, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure to like and subscribe if you want more content like this. I've got some other stuff going on for the tech guys, a bunch of tech stuff. For the anime folks, I got a really long script I've been working on for a video essay, so that should be coming out probably within the next month. And apart from that, leave a comment if you guys agree, disagree, your thoughts, whatever. And apart from that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to be there and have a good one.